arrived in London last night. London is where I grew up and lived until I was 18 years old. So it's a place with a lot of personal history and memories. But I haven't lived here for many years, and for the last 9 years I've been living in rural central Portugal, off-grid, in a very different environment to the big city. So coming here can sometimes bring up a lot of judgment and questions about the way of life here and my choices and making comparisons. And this time I set an intention to, well, just as we were travelling over and coming on the aeroplane and out of the airport, I set an intention just to stay curious and interested in everything that I see here, all the changes, the technology, the way of life that may be very different to my life these days. Just to stay curious and not go into judgment and stories about it. And when I stepped out of the airport, it was cold and it was starting to rain, and I noticed that instead of feeling negative or, going into some commentary inside like, oh, this is typical, I hope it's not like this for our whole trip, I just felt really I was exhilarated actually. I was just appreciating the novelty of it and found it quite beautiful. This morning I did a long meditation. I decided to sit for 1 hour. Just towards the end I started to lose the feeling in my legs and had to change position, but that was just before I'd set an alarm, and just before the alarm went off I had to change position. Anyway, that's not really important, but what I noticed during this meditation was that it wasn't that I wasn't thinking, thoughts were arising, but they weren't taking grip like they usually do. I wasn't getting so distracted by them or taken with them. I just noticed that they sort of rose and then they fell away because I wasn't giving them attention or energy. And that was a really interesting observation to make, because I don't think I've consciously noticed that before. I mean, I'm sure I've experienced it. I've been meditating for more than 20 years, not always every day. I went through quite a long period of not meditating every day when I had young children, and it didn't feel like an easy thing to integrate in my life, and I had another focus. But in all the years I have meditated, I'm sure I have experienced that, but I suppose my meditation had a different emphasis before. In this last, only really 6 months to 1 year, but really, particularly in the last 6 months, I've been exploring the non-dual approach to meditation, which is very much about sitting in the place of the witness and observing the mind, and that's given me so much insight into how my mind works and so much greater awareness, rather than imposing a technique on the mind, which I was doing in the past, which prevented me from really seeing the true nature of my mind. So here I am, arriving in London and excited by each moment that is unfolding.